What's up, guys? Fish Keeper is here once again with another video. I wanted to talk about something. I'm going to title this video Breeding for Profit, but really what I'm talking about is breeding for upgrading your fish hobby. I think a lot of us could use some extra money when we're like, hey, I want to get this tank, or I want to buy a new 100-gallon tank or a 250, and I don't have the money to do it or whatever. I was wanting to share my experiences with breeding shrimp and plants, not really for profit, but for just some kind of like money to upgrade my hobby. So, for example, in front of me right here, in front of us, we have this really nice tank. It's a UNS tank. It's, a more expensive tank than normal tanks. It's also only a 4-gallon tank. Retails for about $75. After taxes, you're looking at like $70 to $80 for a tank that's 4 gallons. Now, a lot of people right there will be like, why would I do that? Like I could just buy, I think $75 to $80 will buy you a nice, I think like 60-gallon tank or something like that. But, there's reasons why some of us like small tanks or some of us like these rimless tanks or whatever. But that's beyond what I'm trying to talk about. What I'm trying to talk about here is you can find ways to get money breeding shrimp or, propagating plants to be able to get those like 60, 75-gallon tanks that you really shouldn't be spending money on right now, or a nice rimless tank that you really shouldn't be spending money on right now, especially during like a crisis or whatever that we're going on, globally right now with this virus. A lot of us are out of work, but we still would like to, continue adding tanks to our fish rooms or countertops. And it just really gets hard to justify spending $80 on any size tank or any size accessory or like filter or whatever, and especially in these times. But with what I'm doing right now, which is what I'm trying to say, like if you breed shrimp and plants, and maybe not force it, just kind of here and there sell some of the shrimp or sell some of the plants, you could actually upgrade your fish hobby pretty easily. And I'm basically making this video just to share my experience with breeding shrimp as for trade in value, right? Because I go take them in and trade them into local fish stores, and propagating plants to sell online on like a few apps, like the Band app. Doing both of those things has allowed me to buy things in this hobby that I would most likely not be able to do unless I was breeding and getting some kind of trade-in value or whatever. Like this tank, I would never be able to justify paying $80 for a tiny little 4-gallon tank to my spouse during a kind of crisis like this, or whatever, without being like, look, I got all the money from these shrimp, so there's really no point in arguing it. So, and again, not everybody has a spouse like that, and I love my spouse, but it does get to a point where you're like, you have 5 tanks, man, and you would rather not have to have that conversation with anybody or your wallet. Let's be honest. Your wallet could be hurting after you buy, for example, this $80, $75 tank, and then you still got to buy a filter for it. And what if you wanted to get a decent canister filter? Well, decent canister filters are, $50+ and then you're like, well, what about this hardscape? What about this? What about that? What about the substrate? And now next thing you know, you're like, what about the light? You're spending a good amount of money. Well, like I said, breeding shrimp and propagating plants can help a lot. So the way I did it was I just started off with neocardinas, obviously, and neocardinas are fun and they're kind of easy to breed. I understand if you might be having a hard time breeding them right now, but you'll get it eventually. And once you do, you're gonna have an abundance of neocardinas. That's just gonna be the truth. Unless you're still struggling, in which case, well, you'll get there eventually anyways. But for the most part, most of us, eventually you get to the point where you're like, I got like 50 or 60 of these shrimp in here. At that point, you could decide, why wouldn't I just take 30 of them or 20 of them to the local fish stores and see if they give me some credit? And maybe I can get that filter that I've been looking at and really shouldn't be buying online or whatever. That's what I've been doing. So, locally here, I've bred and sold to local fish stores about over 300 blue dream shrimp. Now I know that's not a lot but then again, I'm not a business, so I'm not doing it for business purposes. You know, I'm doing it just to kind of upgrade. And if you think about it, 300 shrimp, I most of the time I sold them anywhere from 150 to 200 in store credit. So that's a good amount of money to spend at a store. And that allows you to not have to worry about, you know, busting out your credit card or hard-earned cash to spend on, like, I want to get some Harlequin rasboras or a nice little school of chili rasboras. So I just wanted to make this video to kind of like encourage and empower you guys to do that. It also helps a lot of the local fish stores. If you do a good job breeding shrimp, I believe they risk less giving you some trade-in value or cash, whatever they can work out with you, than them ordering, you know, 100 cherry shrimps from whatever Thailand and then losing 30% of them through, you know, transit. And then also, I mean, shipping is horrible right now with this thing going on. So I'm sure, I mean, I would think most local fish stores would be glad to help you by giving you store credit. Now, they might not want to give you cash, obviously, because of what's going on. They probably don't have the cash to just be throwing out. But then again, they kind of do, because they need to buy stock for their store. So yeah, I really want to like encourage people, like, if you guys want to do it. This whole tank setup in front of you was acquired or purchased or whatever from just doing that. So the tank I got because I sold like 30 green jade shrimps, and I sold a little aquarium, a little Flueball Spec 3 that I bought for nothing on OfferUp, basically. And I just was breeding green jade shrimps in them, and I sold the whole shrimp tank with the shrimp in it, you know, and I immediately bought this tank. It might sound like that wasn't a good idea, but I didn't spend any money on that. The green jade shrimps, I had already sold some locally, so I had already made up the money I put down on just acquiring the green jades initially. So, and I still have green jades. I have like about 20 of them, babies, but they're gonna get there. But yeah, so like, I mean, it's totally doable. It also depends on if local fish stores will even allow you to do it, but it's a cool way to like upgrade your tank, upgrade your fish room, upgrade whatever you're looking at. I've gone a couple filters that, again, I wouldn't have bought if it wasn't for the shrimp breeding, like the Filto Smart 60s that I posted on my video on my channel. Those are all like $75 filters. I would probably not have bought those and just gone with like hang on back filters like this one right here if it wasn't for the trade-in value. So it's like a really nice upgrade, because canister filters, no matter how expensive they are, they just are a little more efficient than hang on back filters as far as like creating flow and all that stuff. So it was a nice upgrade that I didn't have to pay for, because otherwise I'm looking at 2 filters, that's $150 ish after taxes, because they're each $70. So I just by breeding shrimp, I was able to save $150 on filters, right? Same thing with this, you know, UNS tank. I was able to save the $70 for the tank by breeding green jade shrimps. Now, as far as plants goes, I also do plants. Once my plants get crazy in my CO2 injected tank, I cut them and I put them in these tanks that are not CO2 injected. And then eventually, after they outgrow these tanks, I trim them or whatever, and then I sell them online, because I just don't have the room for that many plants. Each time I sell on auction, on like the Band app and stuff like that, I get like $15 to $20. That goes straight to my PayPal, and I use that to like buy fish food, or I need to buy more test strips or some more API, you know, test little tubes or whatever. I want to experiment on like getting these new plants and stuff like that. Like I just purchased some Ludwigia senegalensis, which I've never never grew before, and it looks like a spectacular looking plant. And I'm gonna put that immediately into my CO2 injected tank, propagate the heck out of it, and once I have too much, I'm probably gonna start selling it. And that's gonna help other fish hobbyists and plant hobbyists, because then they'll be able to get it from me, and I'm probably not gonna sell it for a lot. I'm gonna post it up on an auction. I'm not gonna sell it on eBay because that's more of a business, and I'm not looking into business. I'm not looking into getting in the business of plant selling. I'm looking into just getting rid of some plants and continuing my hobby. So it's a really good way to experiment buying new things that you probably wouldn't buy, and it not hurt your wallet. Now, I mean, I know a lot of you guys are like, well, I don't need to do that. I could just buy it. I have a decent job. That's cool. But, I mean, there's a little bit of a, at least what I think, a little bit of a bragging right when you talk to another fish hobbyist or whatever, and you're like, look, I bought this whole setup just from selling shrimp or whatever, you know. That's just like a cool little thing, a nice little street cred kind of thing, you know, nerd, you know, plant nerd kind of street cred. And for anything, that's kind of a good little merit to have. You're like, well, at least I know that I'm pretty good at, you know, growing plants, or I'm pretty good at shrimp keeping. But yeah, that's pretty much all I want to talk about in this video. If you're looking into breeding for profit, do it. I mean, it's so rewarding. It's way more rewarding than just keeping fish. Now, again, you could do this with guppies. You could do this with a lot of different like cories, and it's just as fun. I'm sure it's even more fun to do with something like that. I just can't do cories and stuff like that because I feel like I would need bigger tanks, and all I can afford space-wise right now is I mean, the only space I have right now really to do those kind of things is small little areas here and there. So that's why I keep nano tanks, but I'm able to work those nano tanks in my favor. Like, for example, these tangerine tigers were introduced to this tank I want to say a week ago or something like that. After the tank was fully cycled, I brought them all in. There's a good 20, maybe 25, counting like 10 babies. There's about 20-25 in here, and I fully expect them to breed more. They're not that hard to breed. They're beautiful to look at, and eventually I'm going to sell some too because I'm going to have too many in this tank. So this is a 4-gallon tank. I'm probably going to be maxing out around, I don't like to have more than like 60 shrimp in such a small tank. Once I get like 60, I just sell about 20 and get back to 40. I think 30 to 40 is a good number to have. It's a good healthy colony, especially if they're adults. I'm not talking about babies. Babies to me don't really count because I can't sell them and I don't even see them. I just like to keep them alive. But this tank will eventually be overrun with tangerine tigers. There's actually a green jade shrimp in here somewhere. I threw him in here at the beginning to kind of figure out if the tank was ready. He was kind of like a sacrificial thing that I did. I put the green jade shrimp in here about a week before the tangerine tigers, just to see how it did. It did fine. It looked like it was eating fine. And once I saw that they were eating, I was like, okay, that's good. If a shrimp is eating, that's good. That's one of the main concerns when you're putting shrimp into a new tank. You want surface area with like microfauna growing on it. So once the green jade shrimp did good, like I said, I was able to introduce the tangerine tigers. So yeah, I went off on a little tangent, but you know, breeding for profit, breeding to upgrade your tanks and your hobby, do it if you can. Leave a comment in the comment section below if you're wondering, like, if you have any questions, I guess. But I'm not an expert. I'm not a master at anything. But I mean, I know a few things. Like maybe, or we could just talk. Whatever, you know. Maybe you're like, hey, what GH and KH do you keep your tangerine tigers? I know, whatever. I've actually, these tangerine tigers I bred with green jade shrimps together in the same tank, in the same 3-gallon tank. The tangerine tigers were at the 30 to 40 numbers, and the green jades were also at the 30 to 40 numbers, but actually I think the green jades were a little more. And they were all living in a 3-gallon tank, but now I separated them. The green jades are with my red crystal shrimps, actually, and my tangerine tigers are here. I don't recommend mixing the two species, but I've gotten away with it for a while now, especially with that green jade colony. I've kind of forced that green jade colony to breed and survive in low parameters, like low GH, low KH, and they were breeding. I mean, it was an experiment that I was running, and the green jade shrimp were breeding in Caridina parameters, and they were exploding in population. So I figured, well, I might as well just migrate these to their red crystal shrimp tank, which is the same parameters, and let them keep doing their thing. And over here, I'll just keep tangerine tigers. Will I introduce a different species of shrimp in here? I don't think so. Maybe a mono shrimps, because they'll just help. But I think I'll have enough shrimps in here eventually. I do suspect that the Aspe or SB rasboras that I have here will start to munch on these shrimp babies eventually, so it'll self-sustain itself. But yeah, guys, like I said, leave a comment in the comment section below. Like the video if you can. Subscribe if you haven't. If you like shrimp, aquascaping, plants in a box, or you know, the new stuff that they're doing, like palladiums and all that stuff. Yeah, subscribe, like, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Let me show you guys the tangerines as I leave. Cool little guys. All right, guys, peace.